Okay, so today I'm just gonna talk about my personal build for Robust Spirit for Soulfist. So currently I'm 1475 and I am running a 4-piece hallucination, and that just gives me this nice crit rate, 15% crit rate since we dropped the preordained set, and it also gives me some damage on top of that, so we don't lose any damage dropping the 2-piece salvation that I was previously running. Next week, I will probably be running 4-piece hallucination and 2-piece salvation until I can finish my 6-piece hallucination set entirely, or the um, reality buff that comes with for hallucination set. So I've got 1601 spec currently, 536 crit. I am running Grudge 3, Keen Blunt 3, Cursed Doll 3, Robust Spirit 3, and Precise Dagger 3. My gems are all level 7, so I have all of my main damage cooldown plus energy release, and then I have all of my damage gems at level 7 as of yesterday. I just got my Crippling Barrier 7 gem yesterday for my Vicus run, and I'm running the Lost Twin Cliff set. So with this crit and our Precise Dagger, we are at, and with our hallucination buff, because this is just a passive 15% crit, we are at 61% crit, which means that Keen Blunt is still an efficient engraving for us, which is good. In terms of skills, I'm running Force Orb with Quick Prep for faster cooldown. Force Orb is kind of like the ability that we can just kind of spam, because if it lines up in our hype properly, that's great. But if it doesn't, that's fine as well, because its cooldown is very short with quick prep. Let's see, without hype up, it's an 11-second cooldown, which fits, like, if we use it outside of hype. So for example, if I use hype and then cancel it immediately, my hype takes roughly 16 seconds to fill up right now, 17 maybe. So I could use this Force Orb within the first like 5 seconds of my hype being on cooldown, and it would still be off cooldown when my hype meter came back up, so I could still do my combo. So for Force Orb, we're running 1, 4, or 1, 3, 1. So we have Powerful Wave and Scattering Wave. I have all of these tripods on my gear at level 3, so my tripods are level 4. Force Orb is weapon, I do believe. Yeah, so level 3 Force Orbs. Working on getting the level 4s on them, but it'll happen when it happens. Then I have Energy Release. I take Quick Prep on Energy Release, which means that I can get 2 Energy Release rotations per hype. This second slot right here does not matter which one you take. If you're doing, for example, Vulcan Gate 1, you probably want to take Shadow Purification to cleanse people and yourself in case you get hit by the Red Wolf. If you're maybe you're in a pug that isn't doing so hot and taking a lot of damage, maybe you want to take Energy Release Enhancement to give them some extra damage reduction on top of what Energy Release already gives. Or maybe you'd want to use it to immune some abilities that would normally knock you down or make you lose your energy release. So like if you hit energy release and then immediately get hit, you don't get the buff because it cancels the animation for it. So sometimes maybe you want to run tenacity, which is my preferred route for everything but Vulcan Gate 1 where I bring the cleanse. And then ready attack is just required. This is our main buff. We can fit our entire rotation inside of this, so that's what we need to do. And we have a Merciless Pummel. So we take Hard Hitter, Cold Hearted, Double Up, pretty standard tripod choices for Merciless Pummel. This is kind of like our main damaging ability. At the moment, we can use it twice per hype window with my current cooldown gems. So That's why this is one of my level 12s currently. Then we have Bolting Crash. I've gotten questions on why I take Bolting Crash instead of Lightning Palm. Main answer, it's a lot faster, and it allows us to take Fighting Spirit Enhancement here instead of on Energy Release. So if we took this on Energy Release, then we wouldn't be able to take Quick Prep. But now we still provide our synergy to everyone in our party, and our Quick Prep is still, or our Energy Release still has a Quick Prep cooldown. So this is just move distance, our synergy, and then this makes it an instant instead of like that slow kick that you usually see. You can also use it to close more distance because you can hit it and spacebar immediately after it, so it's kind of like a double dash like you can do with Pulverizing Palm as well. Next we have Energy Blast. This is kind of a tough one because this one requires in order for us to use this one twice in our hype window, with the rotation that I use at least, it requires a bit of luck because we have to proc Conviction Judgment to get the Energy Blast in twice. So, with a level 7 cooldown gem. If I had a level 8 cooldown gem, that might not be the case. I might be fine without proccing it, and then I could swap them entirely. But currently, I need a Conviction Judgment proc for them to work. Also, my legendary Gale Wind is want that to be there. Sometimes these things don't save. Okay, so Energy Blast. I take Tenacity just to avoid being, knocked down during it because it is one of our best abilities. You could take Ranged Hit if you wanted to kind of be back a little bit further. Um, no reason to take Efficient Striker whatsoever. You should not be using this ability outside of Hype, which means the energy cost doesn't matter because if you go out of energy in Hype 3, you've done something terribly wrong. We go with Weak Point Destruction for the extra damage to push immune foes, which is any boss really. This caps out at plus 40% at level 1, and it doesn't scale that high, so this is always our better choice. And we don't really care about it being high stagger, because with the Overwhelm Rune, it's already one of our better stagger abilities as it is. And then we have Ferocious Strike, which just makes it a very fast ability compared to normal. Then we move on to Crippling Barrier. So we have Quick Prep, so that we can use it twice per hype window again. We have Hard Hitter. This is what makes our Crippling Barrier actually good, is this Hard Hitter level. Because then we go down to Keen Judgment. So Keen Judgment takes into account the max charge with Hard Hitter and deals damage on our release based on that. So for Crippling Barrier, I go 2, 3, 2. Flash Step, this is just our movement ability. Take Excellent Mobility, and then take Victory Shout for some extra damage sometimes. Then we move on to Heavenly Squash. This is my conviction, so I use this first thing. But I go 1, 2, 1. I know a lot of people go 1, 3, 1. They take Burning Hands because Burning Hands is more damage, but your animation time is so much longer. So let's see really quick. If I use it with my Harsh Training, that's it. That was my animation time. If I were to switch it over to Burning Hands, that's my new animation time, which is a lot longer, and that can cost us the end of our hype window, because sometimes the end of your hype window can be very tight on fitting in that very last ability. So that extra animation time can actually cost us like 4 million damage on our last ability. So unless Burning Hands is going to give us over 4 million damage, then I don't consider it worth it, which currently it does not give me that much damage. As you just saw, the burn ticks were relatively small. But as far as rotation goes, I guess I can go through my gems. So I have Judgment on Force Orb, Galewind on Energy Release, because I want this Energy Release to go off as fast as it can to avoid consuming more of my hype time. Then I have Galewind 3 on Merciless Pummel, or Legendary Galewind. Galewind Legendary can go on Merciless Pummel or Energy Blast. They are both the same. They both have roughly the same time for animation, so it doesn't really matter which one you put it on. But I prefer to put it on Merciless Pummel because then I can put Overwhelm on Energy Blast. Then Bolt and Crash, I just put Bleed. I have not gotten a Legendary Bleed rune yet, even though I've been doing Orion, Moak, Thunderwing since probably week 2, the start of week 2 of the game. Energy Blast, Overwhelm, like I said. Crippling Barrier, we have Galewind on it so that we can squeeze out maybe just a few more ticks before our energy release ends. And I'll show you more about that when I'm actually showing you the rotation. Flash Step, I put Quick Recharge on it just because we can get potentially, if we mess up our Conviction Judgment, or not necessarily mess it up, but we don't get our Conviction Judgment, the Quick Recharge can save us and we might still be able to get the second Energy Blast in. Or we can just save it for mobility, which is the preferred method in the Vicus fight, especially the Gate 3, which I uploaded the other day. Heavenly Squash, I take Conviction. This is what I start my rotation out with. So when I start my rotation, I usually try and use my Synergy before it because it lasts for 10 seconds and it has 12-second cooldown, which pretty good. That's very, very high uptime. Plus, if you get like a quick recharge in there, then it will be off cooldown in time. So I started off with a Bolt and Crash, into Energy Release, into my Conviction Judgment consumers, and then I do a Merciless Pummel. So if I actually go into Hype, reset my cooldowns, it looks something like this. And then that Crippling Barrier right there, if you see it, you can see that when I use it, so if we go through it again, so you see my energy release cooldown. When it says 0.0, I want to make sure that I've let go of my Crippling Barrier so that the damage still applies. So let's see the difference in it applying or not applying. So here it is without. We get a 4 mil. But with it, we get a 6 mil. So we've gained 2 mil damage by clipping that in that frame. So we could also say, what if we didn't clip it and just let it run? Well, that means that we have to let it run for 2 mil damage to be worth it out of those, which is roughly going to give you about 7 ticks of damage. So we need that to be made up. So right there, I let it go just outside of the window. So you have to make sure that the timing on it is just right. When the energy release buff has like 0.1 left, so like right there, you need to let it go so that you can guarantee that you hit with your hype buff. So if I do a 2-minute here in a second, we can also see what the ult hits. So if I want to ult and hope it crits, it looks something like this. We would want our hallucination buff to be up when it hits, though, so we wouldn't ever want to immediately ult in the fight if we can avoid it. So what we want to do is make sure that we have some hallucination built up. So we're going to keep hoping that we get crits. and if we can get like a attack speed synergy from someone, then that can help us make sure that it's up even faster. Not our hallucination stacks, but we can get our ult off faster. So we have 23 mil non-crit without bolt and crash. And now we might get 24 mil, no crit. You really are just playing the crit game with your ult. So far, the highest hit I've seen from the ult is I've hit a 130 mil in Argos, P3. So, yeah, if you crit with self buffs, you're probably looking at about a 60 mil hit with this build. One thing I will say is that don't hyper focus on making sure that your energy release and bolt and crash are up for your ult. Hitting your ult, whether you have the buffs up or not, hitting the ult and getting the cooldown started is better than holding the ult for 3 minutes to hit it with the buff once. Because if I use it and hit it, in 3 minutes I'm going to be able to do a second ult. So I'm going to get 2 ults off, even if they're un-energy released, versus someone getting 1 off with energy release. So without energy release, it just looks like this. So we had a 16 mil non-crit. So what is one of our crit ones going to look like? So we still hit a 40 mil. So I'm going to hit a 40 mil, and then in 3 minutes, I'm going to use it again in an opportune time. If it lines up with my energy release, that's great. If it doesn't, I still want to hit it just to make sure that that damage is being done, because that is still a large portion of my damage. So if I start 2-minute timer, I can show you what my normal rotation will look like. So if we start test, so I get my conviction judgment, go into Merciless Pummel, energy blast, and then I start this crippling barrier and release it. And sometimes your crit rate is going to be bad. And then I wait for my energy release again, do the same rotation, but this time I end it with crippling barrier and I clip it before the hype ends. So I can use my Force Orb there because I'm not saving it for anything too particular. So I can kind of make the rotation fluid, as in I can make it changing to fit what I need to do. If I need to make sure that I get my Conviction Judgment procs, then I can save them. Right now, I'm not getting them, that's fine. But we always want to make sure that our Crippling Barrier is in energy release and hype, if possible. We definitely want it to be in hype, but the energy release part can sometimes fluctuate. So right there, see we hit a 42 mil with our ult without our energy release up. And right there, I missed the crippling barrier in my hype window by just a small fraction of a second. This will probably be the last hype rotation that we get in here, so. So we get around 2.6 mil roughly, which I think is pretty good compared to some of my other classes that I play. And honestly, I enjoy the class a lot. Now that I've actually gotten to that 600 spec breakpoint, everything feels a lot more fluid. My cooldowns line up really nicely thanks to the gems and the cooldown reduction that we get in Hype 3. Because in Hype 3, we do actually get skill cooldown. So we get 25% cooldown reduction, and we get attack speed, and we obviously get the damage. So that's why using the abilities inside Hype is so important. Because, say, for example, I use Energy Blast outside of Hype. That's a 26-second cooldown. We don't want that. Not only is it a 26-second cooldown, but it doesn't do any damage. So we've just wasted a very long cooldown ability to do no damage. Versus, so 26-second cooldown versus in Hype, 17-second cooldown. Which, with one lucky proc of quick recharge, or if we actually proc our Conviction Judgment first, then it's a 15-second cooldown. Now it fits inside of our Hype window just barely. The end of it will be outside of it, but we will get a few hits off inside of our Hype window. So that's pretty much everything that I have going for my build right now. So it's just, I'm going to be going 6-piece hallucination. Next week I will be 4-piece hallucination, which I am right now. Plus, I will be 2-piece salvation, which will give me just roughly 14% damage, I think it is. So I'll have an additional bit of damage next week, and then I need another week after that to finish my 6-piece hallucination. So should be 6-piece soon, and then I can update on the damage and whatnot that we have. But for now, that's pretty much it.